Greetings everybody, and welcome to day 6, and also the final day of Marvel May 2019. So today our look at Phase 1 of the MCU comes to a close with the first Avengers movie. So, here we go. And yeah, I know, I'm kind of sounding like a broken record at this point, but as always I'll be looking at the plot, the production, and the music. So, without further ado, here we go. The Asgardian Loki encounters the Other, the leader of an extraterrestrial race known as the Chitauri. In exchange for retrieving the Tesseract, a powerful energy source of unknown potential, the Other promises Loki an army with which he can subjugate Earth. Nick Fury, director of the espionage agency S.H.I.E.L.D., and his lieutenant agent Maria Hill arrive at a remote research facility during an evacuation, where physicist Dr. Eric Selvig is leading a research team experimenting on the Tesseract. Agent Phil Coulson explains that the object has begun radiating an unusual form of energy. The Tesseract slowly activates and opens a wormhole, allowing Loki to reach Earth. Loki takes the Tesseract and uses his scepter to enslave Selvig and a few other agents, including Clint Barton, to aid him in his getaway. In response to the attack, Fury reactivates the Avengers initiative. Agent Natasha Romanoff is sent to Calcutta to recruit Dr. Bruce Banner to trace the Tesseract through its gamma radiation emissions. Coulson visits Tony Stark to have him review Selvig's research, and Fury approaches Steve Rogers with an assignment to retrieve the Tesseract. In Stuttgart, Barton steals iridium needed to stabilize the Tesseract's power while Loki causes a distraction, leading to a brief confrontation with Rogers, Stark, and Romanoff that ends with Loki's surrender. While Loki is being escorted to S.H.I.E.L.D., Thor, his adopted brother, arrives and frees him, hoping to convince him to abandon his plan and return to Asgard. After a confrontation with Stark and Rogers, Thor agrees to take Loki to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s flying aircraft carrier, the Helicarrier. Upon arrival, Loki is imprisoned while Banner and Stark attempt to locate the Tesseract. The Avengers become divided, both over how to approach Loki and the revelation that S.H.I.E.L.D. plans to harness the Tesseract to develop weapons as a deterrent against hostile extraterrestrials. As the group argues, Barton and Loki's other possessed agents attack the Helicarrier, disabling one of its engines in flight and causing Banner to transform into the Hulk. Well, that's not good. Stark and Rogers work to restart the damaged engine, and Thor attempts to stop the Hulk's rampage. Romanoff reluctantly fights Barton and knocks him unconscious, breaking Loki's mind control. Loki escapes after killing Coulson and ejecting Thor from the airship, while the Hulk falls to the ground after attacking a S.H.I.E.L.D. fighter jet. Fury uses Coulson's death to motivate the Avengers into working as a team. Stark and Rogers realize that for Loki, simply defeating them will not be enough. He needs to overpower them publicly to validate himself as ruler of Earth. Loki uses the Tesseract, in conjunction with a device Selvig built, to open a wormhole above Stark Tower to the Chitauri fleet in space, launching his invasion. Ba-ba-bom. Rogers, Stark, Romanoff, Barton, and Thor rally in defense of New York City, the wormhole's location. Banner arrives and transforms into the Hulk, and together the Avengers battle the Chitauri while evacuating civilians. The Hulk finds Loki and beats him into submission. Puny god. Romanoff makes her way to the wormhole generator, where Selvig, freed from Loki's mind control, reveals that Loki's scepter can be used to shut down the generator. Well, that's convenient. Meanwhile, Fury's superiors from the World Security Council attempt to end the invasion by launching a nuclear missile in Midtown Manhattan. Sheesh, that escalated quickly. Stark intercepts the missile and takes it up the wormhole toward the Chitauri fleet. The missile detonates, destroying the Chitauri mothership and disabling their forces on Earth. Stark's suit runs out of power, and he falls back through the wormhole just as Romanoff closes it. Stark goes into freefall, but Hulk saves him from crashing into the ground. Yay! In the aftermath, Thor returns to Loki and the Tesseract to Asgard. While Fury expresses confidence that the Avengers will return, if and when they are needed. In a mid-credits scene, hold on. There we go. In a mid-credits scene, the Other confers with his master about the failed attack on Earth. Who that master could possibly be? Maybe someone whose name starts with a T and ends with an S? Well, anywho, now let's look at the production of this movie, beginning with development. Ideas for a film based on the Avengers began in 2003, with Avi Arad, the CEO of Marvel Studios, first announcing plans to develop the film in April 2005, after Marvel Enterprises declared independence by allying with Merrill Lynch to produce a slate of films that would be distributed by Paramount Pictures. Marvel discussed their plans in a brief presentation to Wall Street analysts. The studio's intention was to release individual films from the main characters to establish their identities and familiarize audiences with them, before merging the characters together in a crossover film. Screenwriter Zach Penn, who wrote The Incredible Hulk, became attached to the film in 2006 and was hired by Marvel Studios to write the film in June 2007. In the wake of the 2007 to 2008 Writers Guild of America strike, Marvel negotiated with the Writers Guild of America to ensure that it could create films based on its comic book counterparts, including Captain America, Ant-Man, and the Avengers. After the successful release of Iron Man in May, the company set a July 2011 release date for the Avengers. In September 2008, Marvel Studios reached an agreement with Paramount, an extension of a previous partnership, which gave the company distribution rights for 5 future Marvel films. Casting began in October 2008 with Downey signing. Though Don Cheadle was also reported to be reprising his Iron Man 2 World War Machine for the Avengers, he later stated that his character would appear in the film. At the same time, 2 major prospects occurred for Marvel. Jon Favreau was brought in as an executive producer for the film, and the company signed a long-term lease with Raleigh Studios to produce 3 other big-budget films: Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America: The First Avenger, at their Manhattan Beach, California complex. Lou Ferrigno, who voiced Hulk in The Incredible Hulk, stated that he would be involved in the film. In February 2009, Samuel L. Jackson signed a 9-picture deal with Marvel Entertainment to play Nick Fury in Iron Man 2 and other films. In September 2009, Edward Norton, who played Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk, stated that he was open to returning in the film. The next month, executive producer Jon Favreau stated that he would not direct the film, but would, quote, definitely have input and a say. Favreau also expressed concerns, stating, quote, it's going to be hard because I was so involved in creating the world of Iron Man, and Iron Man is very much a tech-based hero. And then with Avengers, you're going to be introducing some supernatural aspects because of Thor. Mixing the 2 of those works very well in the comic books, but it's going to take a lot of thoughtfulness to make that all work and not blow the reality that we've created. In March 2009, actress Scarlett Johansson replaced Emily Blunt in portraying Natasha Romanoff in Iron Man 2, a deal that subsequently attached her to the Avengers. The following day, Marvel announced that the film's release date had been pushed back to May 4, 2012, almost a full year later. Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston joined the film's cast in June, returning as Thor and Loki, respectively. In July 2009, Penn talked about the crossover process, stating, quote, my job is to kind of shuttle between the different movies and make sure that we're finally mimicking that comic book structure where all these movies are connected. There's just a board that tracks, here's everything that happens in this movie overlaps with that movie. I'm pushing them to do as many animatics as possible to animate the movie, to draw boards that we're all working off the same visual ideas. But the exigencies, sorry if I mispronounced that word, of production take first priority. At first, Penn tried to reduce Thor's role in the script because he had doubts about the character's ability to succeed on film. He changed his mind once Hemsworth was cast as Thor. The film had always intended to use Loki as its villain, but Penn noted that early discussion had considered using Red Skull. Ooh, that would have been interesting. In January 2010, Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige was asked if it would be difficult to meld the fantasy of Thor with the high-tech science of Iron Man and the Avengers. Quote, no, he said. Also, quote, because we're doing the Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, Walt Simonson, and J. Michael Straczynski Thor. We're not doing the blow the dust off the old Norse book in your library Thor. And in the Thor of the Marvel Universe, there's a race called the Asgardians, and we're linked through this tree of life that we're unaware of. It's real science, but we don't know about it yet. The Thor movie is about teaching people that. Yep. In March, it was reported that Penn had completed the first draft of the script, and that Marvel editor-in-chief Joe Quesada and Avengers comic book writer Brian Michael Bendis have received copies. Also in March, Chris Evans accepted an offer to play Captain America in 3 films, including The Avengers. Yay, well that was really good. Anywho, let's move on to pre-production. Yeah. Okay. By April 2010, Joss Whedon was close to completing a deal to direct the film and to rework Penn's script, and was officially announced in July 2010. Excuse me. On the hiring, Arad stated, quote, "My personal opinion is that Joss will do a fantastic job. He loves these characters and is a fantastic writer. It's part of his life, so you know he is going to protect it. I expect someone like him is going to make the script even better." Feige added, quote, "I've known Joss for many years. We were looking for the right thing, and he came in and met on it. We wanted to find a director that's on the verge of doing something great, as we think Joss is." Well, come on, it's Joss Whedon. How could you go wrong with Joss Whedon? Whedon stated at the 2010 San Diego Comic-Con International that what drew him to the film is that he loves how, quote, "these people shouldn't be in the same room, let alone on the same team. And that is the definition of family." When Whedon received Penn's draft, he told Feige he felt the studio did not, quote, "have anything, and they should, quote, pretend this draft never happened." Part of Whedon's issue was the lack of character connections in Penn's draft, which necessitated Whedon to begin, quote, "at square one." Whedon went on to write a 5-page treatment of his plan for the film, and created the tagline, "Avengers, some assembly required," riffing on the Avengers Assemble slogan from the comic books. Marvel quickly began working to sign Whedon to write and direct, only stipulating that he included the Avengers against Loki, a battle among the heroes in the middle, a battle against the villains at the end, and to get the film done for its May 2012 release. The script would go through, quote, "a lot of insane iterations of what might be," according to Whedon. Whedon explained that there was a point when it was not certain that Johansson would star in the film, so he, quote, "wrote a huge bunch of pages starring the Wasp." He was also, quote, "worried that one British character actor was not enough to take on Earth's mightiest heroes, and that we feel like we were rooting for the overdog. So I wrote a huge job with Ezekiel Stane, Obadiah Stane's son, in it. Once all the actors were, quote, locked in place, the movie stayed on mission. Whedon noted that the characters used did not have the same issue, unlike the X-Men. He felt, quote, "these guys just don't belong together," before realizing their interactions could be like the Dirty Dozen. Whedon also referenced Dr. Strangelove, The Abyss, His Girl Friday, and Black Hawk Down. Whedon would ultimately share a final screenplay credit with Penn, though Whedon noted he, quote, "fought for sole credit and was, quote, very upset about it." Penn felt the two, quote, "could have collaborated more, but that was not his choice. He wanted to do it his way, and I respect that." The casting process continued into much of March 2010, with the additions of Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, and Clark Gregg. Ruffalo replaced Edward Norton, whom Marvel declined to have back. Quote, "We have made the decision to not bring Ed Norton back to portray the title role Bruce Banner in The Avengers," stated Feige. Quote, "Our decision is definitely not based on monetary factors, but instead rooted in the need for an actor who embodies the creativity and collaborative spirit of our other talented cast members. The Avengers demands players who thrive working as part of an ensemble, as evidenced by Robert, Chris H., Chris E., Samuel, Scarlett, and all of our talented casts. We are looking to announce a name actor who fulfills these requirements and is passionate about the iconic role in the coming weeks." In response, Norton's agent Brian Swardstorm decried Feige's statement, calling it, quote, "purposefully misleading," and a, quote, "an inappropriate attempt to paint our client in a negative light." In October 2014, Norton claimed it was his own decision never to play Hulk again because he, quote, "wanted more diversity with his career, but did not want to be associated with only one character." So basically he did it to avoid typecasting. Smart, I guess. In August 2010, it was reported that Paramount Pictures and Marvel Studios were planning to start shooting in February. Simultaneously, it was declared that the film would be shot in 3D, although Mark Ruffalo later tweeted that this was not the case. In October 2010, Grumman Studios in Bethpage, New York, and Steiner Studios in Brooklyn, New York City were announced as filming locations, with set construction slated to begin in November. But as Whedon later explained, quote, "Originally we were supposed to be in Los Angeles, then for a short period we were supposed to be in New York, and then somehow we ended up in Albuquerque." That's a little bit weird. Also that October, Walt Disney Studios agreed to pay Paramount at least $115 million for the worldwide distribution rights to Iron Man 3 and the Avengers. The deal also allowed Paramount to continue to collect the 8% box office fee it would have earned for distributing the film and a marquee credit, placement of the company's production logo on marketing materials, and the film's opening titles. As a result, the on-screen production credits reads, "Marvel Studios presents in association with Paramount Pictures," though the film was solely owned, distributed, financed, and marketed by Disney. Paramount's Epix retained paid TV rights. In December 2010, Governor of New Mexico Bill Richardson and Marvel Studios co-president Luis Desposito announced that the Avengers would film primarily in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with principal photography scheduled for April through September 2011. Parts of the film were also scheduled to be shot in Michigan, but a plan to film in Detroit ended after Governor Rick Snyder issued a budget proposal that would eliminate a film tax incentive. 3 months later, in March, Governor of Ohio John Kasich announced that before Mayor Frank G. Jackson's State of the City address that the Avengers would film in Cleveland. Concept illustrator and designer of Iron Man's Mark 7 armor, Phil Saunders, stated that, quote, "Joss Whedon was looking for something that had the cool factor of the suitcase suit from Iron Man 2, while still being a fully armored, heavy-duty suit that could take on an army in the final battle." To that end, Saunders borrowed ideas that had been proposed in Iron Man 2, as well as some ideas that had been abandoned in Iron Man, and merged them together in a modular suit that has big ammo packets on the arms and a backpack. The Science and Entertainment Exchange also provided science consultation for the film. Nice. Casting reached its final stages in the following year. In February 2011, Kobe Smulders acquired the role of Maria Hill, after participating in screen tests conducted by Marvel for the role of a key S.H.I.E.L.D. member, who Samuel L. Jackson described as Nick Fury's sidekick. Over the successive months, the film's cast expanded to include Stellan Skarsgård, Paul Bettany, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Paltrow was cast at Downey's insistence. Prior to this, Whedon had intended the film to include supporting characters from heroes' individual films, commenting, quote, "You need to separate the characters from their support systems in order to create the isolation you need for a team." That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Now let's move on to the filming side of things. Principal photography began on April 25, 2011 in Albuquerque, New Mexico at Albuquerque Studios, with the working title Group Hug. Interesting. In June 2011, stuntman Jeremy Fitzgerald injured his head while attempting a stunt involving a 30-foot fall from a building after getting hit by an arrow. Yikes. A Marvel spokesperson later told TMZ that despite the injury, Fitzgerald recovered and continued working on set. Excuse me. The following month, secondary filming took place about an hour outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the Butler area. A chase sequence was also shot in Worthington, Pennsylvania at Creekside Mushroom Farms, the world's largest single-site mushroom farm, which provided 150 miles of abandoned limestone tunnels 300 feet below the ground for filming. Production relocated to Cleveland, Ohio in August 2011, where filming transpired over a period of 4 weeks. The city's East 9th Street was chosen as a double for New York City's 42nd Street to be used in climactic battle sequences. Army Reserve soldiers assigned to the Columbus, Ohio-based 391st Military Police Battalion provided background action during the battle scenes in Cleveland. Staff Sergeant Michael T. Landis stated the use of real soldiers made the scenes more realistic and helped portray the military in a more positive light, explaining that, quote, "It's easy for us to make on-the-spot corrections to tactics and uniforms. The director actually took our recommendation on one scene and let us all engage the enemy as opposed to only the gunners in the trucks engaging." Filming also took place in the large vacuum chamber at the NASA Plumberg Station near Sandusky, Ohio. The station's space power facility was used to portray a S.H.I.E.L.D. research facility. A series of explosions were filmed at the Chevrolet powertrain plant in Parma, Ohio, as part of the battle sequence that began in Cleveland. Scenes from the film were also shot on Public Square and the Detroit Superior Bridge. Public Square's southwest quadrant was turned into Stuttgart, Germany, for filming. Nice. Principal photography concluded in New York City, where filming occurred over 2 days. Filming locations in New York City included Park Avenue and Central Park. Nice. For scenes taking place in Manhattan, visual effects supervisor Jake Morrison shot aerial footage for over 3 days to use as background plates, elaborating that his main objective was to, quote, get as much aerial work in as possible for the audience to see the big expanses, the wide establishing shots, and also making sure that the effects work doesn't look too computer-generated. Quote, we're getting much better at making entirely computer-generated environments, Moore explained, but there is no substitute for starting with a real image and adding what you need. Cinematographer Seamus McGarvey stated that he composed the frame with a 1:85:1 aspect ratio to cope with the varying heights of the main characters, explaining that, quote, shooting 1:85:1 is kind of unusual for an epic film like this, but we needed the height in the screen to be able to frame in all the characters like Hulk, Captain America, and Black Widow, who was much smaller. We had to give them all precedence and width within the frame. Also, Joss Whedon knew the final battle sequence was going to be this extravaganza in Manhattan, so the height and vertical scale of the buildings was going to be really important. The film was McGarvey's first venture with shooting with a digital camera, the ARRI Alexa. The Canon EOS 5D Mark II and Canon EOS 7D digital SLR cameras were used for some shots, and high-speed shots were captured on 35mm film with the Aeroflex 435. About his visual approach, McGarvey remarked, quote, Joss and I were keen on having a very visceral and naturalistic quality to the image. We wanted this to feel immersive and did not want a comic book look that might distance an audience with the engagement of the film. We moved the camera a lot on Steadicam, cranes, and on dollies to create kinetic images, and we chose angles that were dramatic, like low angles for heroic imagery. Now let's move on to the post-production side of things. There we go, okay. In December 2011, Disney announced that the film would be converted to 3D. Said Whedon, quote, I'm not a big fan of extremely long lens talkie movies. I like to see the space I'm in and relate to it, so 3D kind of fits my aesthetic anyway. And the technology has advanced so far in the past couple years. That's very true. Whedon also said that, quote, there definitely are movies that shouldn't be in 3D, but the Avengers isn't obnoxiously 3D. There's no, oh look, we're going to spend 20 minutes going through this tunnel because it's in 3D. And no one is pointing at the screen the entire time. But it's an action movie. Things tend to hurl toward the screen anyway. Yeah, that's very true. In January 2012, it was reported that the film would be digitally remastered for IMAX 3D and open in IMAX theaters on May 4th, 2012. The same date it opens in regular theaters. The film's IMAX release follows Marvel's IMAX releases of Iron Man 2 and Thor. In a May 2012 interview, Whedon stated that it was his decision to include Thanos in the post-credits scene, although the character is not identified in the film. Quote, he for me is the most powerful and fascinating Marvel villain. He's the great-granddaddy of the badasses, and he's in love with death, and I think that's just so cute. For me, the greatest Avengers comic book was Avengers Annual Number 7 that Jim Starlin did, followed by Marvel 2-in-1 Annual Number 2 that contained the death of Adam Warlock. Those are some of the most important texts and I think underrated milestones in Marvel history, and Thanos is all over that. So somebody had to be in control and had to be behind Loki's work, and I was like, it's gotta be Thanos, and they said, okay, and I'm like, oh my god! An additional code involving the Avengers eating shawarma was shot on April 12, 2012, a day after the world premiere. Evans wore a prosthetic jaw while filming the scene to cover the beard he had grown. Shawarma sales in Los Angeles, St. Louis, and Boston reportedly skyrocketed in the days following the film's release. Nice. Whedon stated the inspiration for the shawarma scene came from the events surrounding the filming of the scene where Fred dies in Wesley's arms in the Angel episode, A Hole in the World. After filming the scene, Whedon and actors Amy Acker and Denisoff, who played Fred and Wesley respectively, quote, went out for drinks and ended up just sitting around quietly, exhausted from the day's events. which Whedon then mimicked in the scene for the film. The film contains more than 2,200 visual effects shots completed by 14 companies: Industrial Light and Magic, Weta Digital, Scanline VFX, Hydraulics, Fuel VFX, Evil Eye Pictures, Luma Pictures, Cantina Creative, Trickster, Modest Effects, Whiskey Tree, Digital Domain, The Third Floor, and Method Design. ILM was the lead vendor and shared responsibility for creating many of the film's key effects, including the helicarrier, the New York cityscape, digital body doubles, Iron Man, and the Hulk. To create the on-screen Hulk, Ruffalo performed in a motion capture suit on set with the other actors, while the 4 motion capture HD cameras, to a full body to focus on his face, captured his face and body movements. Jeff White, ILM's visual effects supervisor, said, quote, "We really wanted to utilize everything we developed in the last 10 years and make it a pretty spectacular Hulk. One of the great design decisions was to incorporate Mark Ruffalo into the look of him. So, much of Hulk is based on Ruffalo and his performance, not only in motion capture and on set, but down to his eyes, his teeth, and his tongue." Ugh. ILM digitally recreated the vast majority of the New York City landscape used in the film. In total, ILM artists rendered an area of about 10 city blocks by about 4 city blocks. To do this, ILM sent out a team of 4 photographers to take pictures of the area in a shoot that lasted 8 weeks. Tyson Binder, the New York location manager on the film, helped by securing the rights to almost every building's likeness in the area ILM needed. Disney Sony Pictures agreed for Oscorp Tower from The Amazing Spider-Man to be included in the film, but the idea was dropped because much of the skyline had already been completed. Oh, that would have been awesome! Weta Digital took over duties for animating Iron Man during the Forest duel from ILM. Guy Williams, Weta's visual effects supervisor, said, quote, "We shared assets back and forth with ILM, but our pipelines are unique and it's hard for their assets to plug into it. But in this case, we got their models and had to redo the texture spaces because the way we texture maps is different." Williams said the most difficult part was recreating Iron Man's reflective metal surfaces. Scanline VFX completed the reveal shots of the helicarrier from the moment Black Widow and Captain America are on the carrier deck lifts off. Evil Eye Pictures composed digital backgrounds into shots filmed against a green screen for scenes taking place inside the helicarrier. Co-stars of Hydraulics said, quote, "We did the opening 10 minutes of the movie, other than the opening setup in space, including Loki's arrival on Earth, and subsequent escape from the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Luma Pictures worked on shots featuring the helicarrier's bridge and incorporated the graphic monitor displays that were developed by Cantina Creative. Fuel VFX completed shots taking place in and around Tony Stark's penthouse at Stark Tower. Digital Domain created the asteroid environment, where Loki encounters the Other. Method Design in Los Angeles created the film's closing credits. Steve Viola, creative director at Method Design, said, quote, "This piece was a 2-minute, self-contained main-on-end sequence created entirely in CG. For each of the shots in the sequence, we designed, modeled, textured, and lit all the environments and many of the foreground objects. We received assets from Marvel to include in the piece, then heavily remodeled and resurfaced them to create a post-battle macro sequence. We also designed a custom typeface for the main title of the Avengers, as well as 30 seconds set and scene." Interesting. Now finally, the music. In November 2011, Marvel announced that Alan Silvestri, who scored Captain America: The First Avenger, would write and compose the score for the Avengers. Silvestri said, quote, "I've worked on films where there have been a number of stars, and certainly worked on films where there have been characters of equal weight in terms of their level of importance and profile in the film. But this one is somewhat extreme in that regard because each of these characters has their own world and it's a very different situation. It's very challenging to look for a way to give everyone the weight and consideration they need. But at the same time, the film is really about the coming together of these characters, which implies that there is this entity called the Avengers, which really has to be representative of all of them together." Silvestri developed a score with the London Symphony Orchestra at Abbey Road Studios in London, England. Whedon said, quote, "The score is very old-fashioned, which is why Silvestri was later perfect for this movie, because he can give you heightened emotion, the Hans Zimmer school of I'm just feeling a lot right now. We can also be extraordinarily cute and character-specific, which I love. In March 2012, American alternative rock band Soundgarden announced on its Facebook page that its song Live to Rise would be included on the film's soundtrack. Additionally, the Indian rock band Agni released a music video for its single Hello Androhan, which serves as the theme song for the film's Indian release. Nice! Hollywood Records released the soundtrack concept album inspired by the film Avengers Assemble on May 1st, 2012, the same day as the score. Interesting. So overall, the final chapter, Phase 1 of the MCU, this movie is spot on fantastic and I freaking love it. So overall, I give the Avengers 5 Infinity Gauntlets out of 5. Well, thank you all so much for joining me through this little journey through Phase 1 of the MCU, and hope you all enjoyed it. And next year, we're going to be taking a look at Phase 2 of the MCU, beginning with Iron Man 3. So, until next year, stay strong, true believers.